This is the Wandering Mike.
Welcome everyone to the Wandering Mike. Today I'm here with Tyler. Hey Tyler, how's it go?
It's going well, Mike, and thanks for having me on the Wandering Mike. I really do appreciate you reaching out and having me on the show.
Yeah, of course. I'm really looking forward to this one as well. I think it's gonna be a nice, interesting one for everyone. And yeah, I'm excited. So to get us into it, if you just want to introduce yourself to get us started, tell us a little bit about your life, your journey, anything you want to share.
Sure. Well, my life is definitely an interesting one. I was a child performer, so I've been in film and television and on stage since I was 6 years old, and now currently I wear many hats and have different titles, including father, husband, son, business owner, best-selling author, entrepreneur, public speaker, seeker of warm beaches, lover of fine chocolate, and surveyor of all I see.
Those are some pretty nice titles there.
Yeah, I do enjoy them.
Uh,
It's a fun one to curate.
Definitely. Um, so there was a lot of stuff in there that, yeah, I think we definitely can and need to talk about. Um, and maybe if we started off chronologically, because, yeah, starting to perform at 6 years old, can you take us into maybe the whole experience? So for you, I assume it was kind of normal because being thrown in that young. So how was that experience just being surrounded by it growing up this young age?
It was, as you said, I didn't know it was abnormal until I got older. It kind of was
Mm.
always my life. The I remember being in the Christmas nativity pageant, Christmas play, in first grade, and my teacher Judy Nielsen had cast me as Joseph, and my best friend and neighbor Lisa played Mary. And I remember being on stage and really just loving that feeling of connection with an audience and making them laugh and making them just entertaining them and feeling that energy in the room. And about a month later, from that, my father actually passed away, and Judy again had reached out to my mom and said, I had a shine for the arts, and it might be something worth encouraging. And my mom, looking for an outlet for me, asked if it would be something that I was interested in, and I had said yes. And then, completely unrelated, but in my opinion, not random. My uncle, who worked for the city, um, was having his lunch at the local arts complex because it was right across the street from City Hall, and had overheard a casting director complaining about trying to find a Tiny Tim and how hard was it to find a little boy who could say 5 words, kind of thing. And he leaned over. He's like, "Sorry, I didn't mean to be, eavesdropping, but well, how little is little and what do you need? Because my nephew is tiny." And so he had reached out to mom saying, I've got the business card of this lady. They're looking for to cast this role. And Judy had put the bug in her ear. And so she asked me, is it something that I'd be interested in? And then I did that. And that kind of became the next 12 years of my life, was going to school and then going to the theater. I even went to a fine arts high school where I specialized in performance art, and it was very much like the TV series Fame, where you had core curricular subjects, your math, your science, your language arts, your social studies, but uh, we still most of what I was doing was geared around a performance, and so you had dance and you had choral and singing, and then you had the actual scene study and dramatic arts and staging and blocking, and that was what life was. I didn't realize it was any different until I got out of high school and everybody was else was like, "What did you do for school?" And I was like, "This
Mm,
thing." They're like, "That's weird." And I was like, "Is it?"
yeah. Um, so since that is what you were growing up with, and that is how your life has been, what would you say did you take away from it? And is there things that you learned having this basically this upbringing where you had like a normal school mixed with a performing school? You feel like that aided you in your life in general as well? That there's things that you took away that helped you?
Well, definitely. I think, one of the first things that I took away was our need for community and involvement. You know, a lot of times in media, uh, art kids and particularly, those in performing arts are always the drama geeks, or they're unpopular. And for me, I never felt that because I went to a fine arts high school. We were actually quite celebrated. I was a very popular person within my social group and my peers. And one of the neat things about the school that I went to is we were putting on professional plays and we were working together in an ensemble for 6, 7 months of the year. You know, casting started in September. We'd start rehearsals in the very beginning of October, and then we would rehearse, and then performances went up for usually 2 to 3 weeks in April. And so
Yeah.
that's a long time to be spending with a peer group, particularly for us, because um, rehearsals were Monday to Friday, and they were 4:30 in the afternoon till 8:30, 9 o'clock for the first half of the rehearsal schedule, and then they started pushing until, like, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. We'd be getting off of rehearsal sometimes, particularly towards the last month and getting into total amalgamations and the dress rehearsals and things like that, where we'd be at the school until 1 or 2 in the morning. And that community and that sense of belonging was critical, because I always felt supported and I never felt alone. And I think a lot of the issues when it comes to people's self worth or identity come from that feeling of isolation. And so I think it's important to have that community of people who are your peers, who are supporting you, and to have mentorship within that group of people who have been there and can guide you, and then to pass that on and be a mentor yourself. I write about it in my book and a lot of the seminars that I put on, where I feel that we are always three um, types of person at any given moment. We are a leader to those who haven't done what we have done. We are a peer to those who are doing what we are doing. And we are a student to those who have done more than we have. So we're constantly in this state of both learning, supporting, and giving back our knowledge. And I think when you can recognize that, it really opens up the possibilities for you.
Yeah. Um, that's actually something interesting that I just now had a question too, but I'll remember that question. Um, because I kind of just trying to go down or up basically your journey there a little bit, and so you were or still are I'm not sure actually acting, so you actually have been doing it for a lot of years. So what is the most exciting part for you now in actually, because a lot of people might also forget that it is a job at the end of the, like, it is a job. Um, so what's the most exciting part about that job to you?
I think for me, the reason that I get up and do it is for the chance to do something collaborative, and um, for me to be able to find expression in scenarios that I wouldn't normally be subjected to. I get to do some really incredible things. I just had a movie come out. This very powerful movie called The Order. It stars Jude
Mm.
Law and Ty Sheridan, and
Oh,
it's it's just an incredibly poignant film, particularly in this day and age. It's based on real life, a book based on real life events called uh, I, the movie's called The Order, and I can't remember if the book is called The Order as well. But it's about a right wing uh, white supremacist militia group that came from a sect of the Aryan Nation that was in Oregon and Washington State, Idaho, in that Pacific Northwest in the 80s. And uh, the director in this case was just phenomenal and thoroughly collaborative. Working with Justin is to this day the greatest professional gift that I've ever had. And I get to play one of the white supremacists, which is very against my type. Again, I grew up in the arts. I've grown around a very diverse population, um, and am but as comfortable as I feel I can be. I mean, I grew up in a very rural and conservative town and was against type because I was in the arts. And so to be able to uh, play different people and try to discover humanity in a mindset that I wouldn't necessarily agree with, I think is where you can start to find true connection with people because people believe what they believe for a reason. You may not agree with their rationale, but they do have a rationale. And this divisive black or white, you're an idiot because I'm smarter than you attitude, I think is really destructive. One of the things that I really, 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 really like about this movie, it is so well edited, it is so thoughtful, and it doesn't preach. It just shows. It really is the truest and most purest form of the film medium that I've watched in probably 30 years. It is just so good in the way that it just presents. You go along with the ride and you can choose. It doesn't give this group is right or this group is wrong because there's a real homogenous blend of where people are at within their lives, and there's no good guys, there's no bad guys, there's just these people doing these things for reasons that they have justified within their own social structure.
that actually sounds super interesting. Obviously, I don't know anything about the movie, but just what you said in general, yeah, I love that answer so much because I feel like that's one of the reasons that a lot of actors or performing artists maybe are more empathetic than other people just because of that mindset of just, um, because especially nowadays, it's so easy to be like, you're not sharing my opinion, you must be wrong. But
Yeah.
actually going into the head, yeah, I just love that so much. Going into the head of people we disagree with and just seeing what's going on there.
Well, and I think one of the real true gifts that I got was early on and very early in my maturity and my development, um, being presented with the idea that as a human species, we all have experienced various emotions, various thoughts, and w- no one person is isolated or unique in their thought structure. What makes us unique and isolated is our actions based on our thoughts, what we choose
Mm.
to act upon, what our impulses lead us to. Because no one person has never lied, do you know? And no one person has never been 100%, has never only lied. And no one person has ever been perfectly good. And no one person has ever been perfectly bad. We've all done things we shouldn't. We've all done things we should. we've all had this full spectrum. There's no person who's never experienced anger, and there's no person who's never experienced joy. You may have had various levels of it to various capacities, but everybody at some point has experienced these emotions. Some of them will dwell on how limited some of those are, and some of them will dwell on just how much some of them are. But it doesn't change the fact that we have all experienced everything and we've all done everything. And when you can recognize that, and again, being in the performing arts for a very long time gave me the ability to recognize that we all do these things. And my job as an actor, particularly because if you look at my IMDb page, I've played a lot of really, really mean people. I I
Mm,
am not I am not a nice guy on film most of the time. And I would like to think that in reality, I'm a fairly nice guy. But my job as a performer is to find the humanity and the honesty within each one of those characters that I'm playing. And what's interesting is a lot of the times I have played real life people. Um, in fact, I think my last 5 credits on IMDb have all been people based on real life individuals. So The Order,
right.
I did a thing with retelling of the Jean Benet Ramsey story. And I've played 2 people in a limited series called Sex, Lies, and Murder that's very salacious and retelling of, kind of horrific and scandalous murder, uh, real life reenactments. But all of those people had some form of humanity. They weren't nice people
Right.
on objectively from the outset of how the world would perceive them, but they all had to have a rationale and a humanity. And I think if I just played them as just pure evil people, I don't know that it would have um, had the ability to have an impact because we all do these things. And I think that's really the joy of my job and what I did for so long was being able to recognize that we all are flawed and we're all just working the best that we can to get through this life on this blue marble of ours.
Yes, definitely. And that's actually not a bad transition to the question I still have in my head. So you were talking about these three things everyone is: a leader, a peer, and a student. Two different people, but at the same time. Um, what what do you think, and maybe also for you personally, because we also heard in your journey you are a speaker, you're an author now, all these things. Do you think one of the roles is harder for people to basically accept and thrive in than the other?
Yeah, I think that leadership role is the one that most people will push against because there's always somebody in the world who has done something bigger, better, faster, stronger, richer, whatever that uh, adjective is to describe the
Mhm.
thing that's bigger. And I think people discount their own expertise or their own knowledge base because somebody else is doing it as well. And I think people forget there's over 7 billion people in the world right now. You know, I can throw a dart and because it's in my sphere, I know thousands of actors, but a lot of people don't know any. So in my professional career as
Right.
a safety consultant at the company that I'm currently working with, uh, there's they're engineers. It's 135 engineers. I am literally the only actor. I got a message from a guy this morning on the Slack channel going, "Were you movie?" And I was like, I don't know which one." And he's like, "I just saw The Order on Amazon and I think it was you." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, it was me." "How many other movies have you" like, it blew his mind that somebody that he
Right.
works with is a performer. And for me, it's not a big deal, right? And I think stepping into that leadership role of knowing that you have something to offer and something to contribute to the world is probably the hardest of the 3 roles for people to accept. In fact, the whole reason I wrote my book was because I had created a course specifically for people who had been placed into a leadership role who didn't feel comfortable in that leadership role, specifically
Mm,
having to go in front of people and speak to them from a place of authority because they felt that imposter syndrome, where they felt that they didn't belong there or they shouldn't be there or that they weren't a leader or that they didn't know anything. And it's a common theme when in reality, you wouldn't be in that leadership position if you didn't have some kind of expertise. And just because your boss or the person in the other company or some client that you know does it better than you, in your opinion, doesn't negate the fact that you have a level of expertise that is greater than somebody who isn't doing that thing that you do. And I think of my experience right now. I'm in a community theater production of The Wizard of Oz. And
mm,
I joined that cast because my daughter wanted to do a project with me, because a lot of the projects that I do are film and so I'm getting cast and there isn't a role for her, and she wouldn't even be considered for the project. And like some of my stuff she can't even watch, like The Order. She can't come and see
right.
that show. It's a very mature themed show, so she doesn't even get to see daddy's work. And so she had asked if to be on the lookout for something that me and her could do together. And we found this production of The Wizard of Oz. But being a community theater production, there's a lot of people who have never performed before, who just want to perform. And so by default, I've kind of become a leader in there just strictly because of my experience and how long I've been there. But there are other people in the cast who are, in my opinion, more talented than I am, but they
Yeah.
don't have the belief in themselves to step up into a leadership role. Where I'm very comfortable saying, no, I've done this for forever. If you need help, reach out. It doesn't mean that I know more
Right.
than some of the other cast members. All it means is that I have a comfort level stepping into that leadership position and being one of the leaders within the cast. But again, I recognize that there are people there that in my opinion, are more talented than me, but they just don't want to step into that title.
That's like another super interesting thing. Because yeah, like you said, some people um they have the skill, but they are just not comfortable, or even to if I take it from some people that I know in my life, they tell themselves even it's just not for me. I'm not made for this. And um I always feel very sad about this because I'm like we're losing someone very important here that could like teach people, that people could learn, and that could enrich other people's lives. So I mean, from your experience, being comfortable in it and maybe having to gotten comfortable in it at some point, what would you just tell people and to make them more comfortable in a role where they can teach?
Well, I mean, multiple things. I have a whole 3-day course on this, but I
Right.
think I think the first thing that I would let people know is that there's often a misconception that the leader is the person who knows the most. Leader is not the person who knows the most. The leader is the person who can articulate their vision best, or the person who speaks up first is often the leader. And I'll give a perfect example of this.
Right.
Um, if anybody has ever gone through school at any point, and you know, at some point was handed an exam or a quiz or an evaluation, and say a pop quiz, and the class is going through it, and you start going through, and we'll say it's a multiple choice exam, and you're going through, and say you get to question 11 or 12 or 13, and it's a math question, and it's 2 plus 2, and your options are 3, 5, 6, and 7. And you look at it
Yeah.
and you go 2 plus 2, and your options are 3, 5, 6, and 7, multiple choice. And you know, you know that 4, there should be an option, and yet it's
Yeah.
not. And so you're sitting there and you're scratching your head and you're like 3, 5, 6, and 7. And you start looking around and other people are looking around and you can hear, you can feel that energy in the room that something is not
Amazing.
right. It's a little unsettling, it's a little uncomfortable, that something is not right. And all of a sudden, somebody, someone, somewhere puts their hand up and they say, "Excuse me, Mike. Um, question 11. I've got a question." And you go, "What's the question?" And they say, "Well, it's 2 plus 2, but the only options are 3, 5, 6, and 7. And I'm pretty sure none of those are right." Like, I'm pretty sure. I don't know for sure. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure, but I'm questioning myself. And then you look at it and you go, "Oh, I'm sorry. I made a typo. The answer on my answer key is B. It should have been 3, 4, 6, 7. 4 is the correct answer. So if you want to just write down 4 or circle B or do whatever, we'll just throw it out." As soon as that one person says it and you give the clarification, what happens to everybody else in the class? They
Yeah.
all go, "Oh, yeah, I was wondering about that. I just skipped it." Or I did A, B, C, D, E. I just flipped a coin. I picked a thing. I didn't know. Right. And they're like, "I didn't
Yeah.
want to say anything." Because why? Because they didn't want to look like an idiot. They didn't want the social stigma of standing out or being wrong. And the person who found the courage first to speak up was the hero. They were the leader. They were the person who got the recognition and the credit because they had the bravery and found it within themselves to speak up first. Those are the leaders. They're not necessarily the people who know the most. They're not necessarily the people who are the most skilled. What they are the people who are able to articulate the problem best or first. And really good leaders do it together. They're the first and they articulate the best. Those are the really, really high level leaders. And so what I tend to do is show people through a series of different options and uh, different workshops and different exercises that it doesn't take a lot to be that person to speak up. It's just having confidence within yourself to know that what you're saying matters. And really, the majority of my workshops are designed to let people know that their story individually is important, that their life experience matters. What they have done from then until now, it has meaning and is important to somebody else out there. Right. And if they want to be leaders, or if they don't want to be leaders but need to be perceived in leadership, it's important to recognize their own skill set, their own strengths, and become comfortable with who they are. Because when you can be comfortable with who you are, it's really hard to shake you. People can challenge you, people can question you, and they should, and they will if you are in a leadership position. But if you are comfortable with who you are and you're comfortable with your skill set, it won't rattle you because when people ask you a thing you don't know, it's okay to say, "I don't know." But if they ask you something that you do, you
Right.
come from a strength of courage and a position of grounding where you are confident in what you have to say.
Yes. Um, I really love that this is something you've taken on as well because I just feel like this is a very important thing in life that we just learn from each other and that we basically try to help people with what we can, and then people can take away from it what they need. And that basically brings me to the other thing you also mentioned about being a student. So maybe similar question about that role because it's also for every person very important, in my opinion, to learn as much as we can and to find opportunities to learn. So, what would you say would be your tips regarding this student role that every one of us should incorporate into their life?
Well, I think one of the most dangerous things to adopt as an attitude is a feeling that you know everything because you don't. And Lord knows I don't. I am constantly learning because I want to get better at the skill sets that I'm honing. Like I do a lot of things. I'm Canadian, so I play hockey. And to be really super fun and distinct and unique, I am a goaltender in hockey. And I've
Oh,
been playing goal now. I started when I was 12, so quick math, 33 years. I have been playing goal. I don't know everything about the position, and Lord knows I've never made into high level professional leagues because I do it as a hobby and because it's fun. But it doesn't mean that I just sit in the crease each game and just sit there. I just finished going to a wonderful, wonderful hockey camp for goaltenders that's run by a friend of mine, Brad Kirkwood. He runs Top Prospect Goaltending. Shout out to Brad. And he's just a phenomenal coach, and he has a great team around him. And I love going to that camp every year. It happens a bit in on the Christmas break between Christmas and New Year's. It's usually 2 or 3 days. This year it was 3 days. And I always take something away. I'm always learning something new. And what's interesting is I'm learning not just from Brad, but from the other goaltenders that go because everybody is unique and they all do their own thing. And I watch them and I do them. When I'm playing a game, I'm watching the other goalie at the other end of the rink because if the play is in that zone, all I'm doing is standing in my crease waiting for the play to come back to me. So instead of just sitting there passively, I'm actively watching. What does he do? What would I have done differently? What am I now aware of that I could do because they've done it and now I can do that, or I want to try to do that. And then learning from real professionals like Brad who can really analyze me and my technique and what can I do with what I have as a skill set. Because again, everybody's different. I'm 5'8". You know, modern goaltenders are all 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". They're big. They take up the net. They can all do the splits and go post to post. I am a professional performer and trained dancer, and I was for a very long while able to do full Russian splits. I have never had the
mm,
length of leg to be able to stretch the 6 feet to go post to post. I
uh,
can't do that. And when I stand in a full erect upright stance, my shoulder blades just come up to the 4 foot bar. So like I am a small guy. So I need to utilize my flexibility and I need to utilize my speed to be able to make saves that some other guys can use just their height, right? So everybody is different and everybody is unique. But I know for a fact that there are people in my league who look up to me as a leader because I, in this past season, had the highest save percentage and the lowest goals against. I finished this last season. I was so lucky.
mm,
So this may not mean anything to a lot of people, but for those who follow hockey, this will matter. I finished a 18 game season with a 14-0-1 record. My backup played the 3 other games. 14-0 record. I had a 987 save percentage and a .5 goals against average. That means that I had less than 1 goal per game for the whole season and basically saved everything that came my way. In a 40-shot game, they would score once on me. That's what my save percentage was.
mm,
That was awesome. I will never do it again. That was
yes,
definitely an aberration in my playing career. Typically, I'm about a 2.3, 2.4 goals against average, and typically I'm about a .88, .89 save percentage. It's really good for rec men's hockey. And I'd like to think that I'm a pretty good goaltender. I've been doing it for a while. But there are guys who do it at a better level than me, and that's my point. Like, if I was to look to the AHL or the NHL or the KHL, right? There are way better goaltenders than me. But it doesn't change the fact that the guys who play in the South Calgary Recreational Hockey League, the SCRHL, look to me as the best, right? Or it did, at least for this past season. but I'm still a peer with them and I'm still learning. So it's accepting that we're never just one thing. And I think that's the whole point of this. You're never just one thing. If you lock yourself into this I don't have anything to learn attitude, or
Yeah.
I don't have anything to give attitude, or I don't have anything to share attitude, that stops you from being a peer or a mentor or a student. And when you can embrace all three roles to the best of your ability, try to learn as much as you can on the things that interest you, right? I'm a drummer, I'm a goaltender, I'm a public speaker, I'm a performer and actor. I am not the people in my cast think I'm a good singer. I don't think I'm a good singer because I know good singers. But I want to be better and I do know that I have the tools to be a fairly powerful vocalist. So, I take singing lessons. I apply to all of these musicals so I get a chance to be around people so that I can work on harmonies. I'm constantly sitting on my drum kit, working on tracks, watching YouTube videos, learning from other drummers on the internet, talking to fellow musicians, going to the music stores, surrounding myself with people who love the music so that I have a peer group so that I can find the leaders so that I can learn from them and then again pass it on. My one of my best friends, her son is starting to drum now, so I'm showing him how to drum. I helped another friend of mine's son drum. I'm teaching my best friend and basically adopted younger sister. I'm teaching her son how to goaltend. I'm showing my daughter how to play hockey. You know, I we are always learning and we are always growing. But the best way to grow and know that you've learned a thing is to teach somebody else. So you want to be that peer, you want to be that student, and you want to be that leader or that mentor or that sage. And you're doing it in the same breath. Like you're always those things in one. It's a trinity, really.
Yeah. Um, it's so amazing to hear you basically in your answers talk about your life as well and give us a full picture of your life. So I basically just want to ask a pretty maybe you could call it provocative question, but like you do all these things, where do you get the energy from?
Nap a lot and try to eat well. Honestly, I'm often amazed at I don't think to be honest, I think I'm really lazy, Mike. Like, I sleep a lot. I sleep a lot. If you ask my wife, if you were like, "What does Tyler do?" She'd be like, "He comes home and he sleeps." And it's true. I tend to prioritize my rest and rejuvenation because
Mm,
when I'm giving 100%, you know. And I don't try to
right.
pretend like I'm giving 110% because I know that you can't. But I do strive to give 100%, and the days where I'm only giving 95, I actually feel really low on myself because I want to give 100%. If I'm going to do a thing, I'm going to commit to a thing, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. One of the most freeing books I ever read was The Four Agreements, and one of the fascinating things about The Four Agreements and you have to read the book. You can't just go and Google The Four Agreements and read what they are because there's context within the book that explains them. So one of them is be true to your word, and one of them is always do your best. And the two are very interrelated. So being true to your word, if you say you're going to do a thing, do the thing, and always do your best. If you're going to do a thing, you might as well do it to the best of your ability. But what a lot of people don't understand is that your best changes day to day based on your energy levels. And so one of the
Yeah.
things that I try to do is get good rest so that I have the ability to give 100% at a level that I want, as opposed to the level that my body allows. And by being very conscious of rest cycle and downtime and energy levels and fitness and food, a lot of people will laugh. Like, I played I went to the goalie camp and then played 2 hockey games after that. So it was 5 ice times and a total of what would have been 5 plus the quarters, 7 hours of hockey that I played over the course of 5 days. And a lot of people are like, "How do you do that? You're 45." I'm like,
Yeah.
"There's guys in the NHL who play 8 hours a day for 20 years, and they don't never take a break." Like, it's all comparative. So, um, I would encourage anybody who's going, "Well, how do you do what you do?" to read the 4 agreements, because if you've done the best your best to the best of your ability that day, and you were true to your word, whatever you said you were going to do, you did, that's all you need to do. You're only in competition with yourself. And so, what I can do in a day is different than what you can do in a day. And what you and I can do in a day is different than what Beyonce does in a day. Like, I would love to know how Beyonce pulls off what she's pulling off, or how some of these other high level. I want to know how Tony Robbins actually squeezes in all the stuff
Mhm.
he does in a day, because I've worked with Tony Robbins. I know what his schedule is like. I couldn't do it. At least I limit myself and feel like I couldn't do it. I don't know that I want to do it, you know? And so
Right.
I wouldn't ever say that I'm going to do it, because then I have to be true to that word. And so I for that reason, I would strongly encourage all of your listeners to pick up a copy of the 4 agreements if they haven't yet. And even if they have, go back and reread it and see if you actually understood the text. Because I think that is one of the greatest roadmaps to a happy and satisfied life.
Uh, that's amazing, and all I can say is I'm definitely gonna pick that book up now because I think it's the 5th time that, I've heard about this book, and obviously, like you said, I have read the synopsis, but it probably doesn't do it justice, so I have to pick up the book and read it.
Yeah.
Um, and again, you covered on, like, things that in my head, I was like, "These are interesting things again," and because 'cause we're basically now we talked a little bit about how to or, like, we talked a lot about how to have a great life and a life that, that you're proud of and that you enjoy doing, and, um, what I personally heard, as well in your answer was that holding yourself responsible is a big one. And it's so easily said, but then it's like there are so many choices every day, and there's like so many things also to not make a choice on. So, um, maybe you can also tell us or give us a little bit because you do a lot of things as well. So, um, basically, the point where you are like, this is my life, and this is what I want to do with my life. And with that question, it's also the what do I really want to do with my life, right? Like really figuring out, um, am I just telling myself these things? Are other people telling me these things? Like where is the things I want to focus my energy on?
For me, I have a pretty good developed sense of ego and self. And so I know when I'm doing things just to feed my ego, and that's often a path that I shouldn't walk down. Then it needs to be of a slightly higher serving thing. And I can't pretend like there aren't things that I haven't done purely for ego play. But they tend to not work out well. And I've learned that lesson, or at least I hope I have. I'm still learning that lesson. And I find that I'm not unique with that. We all know when we're doing things that feel good, and we all know when we're doing things that feel bad. And we all know that there are things that maybe we don't want to do, but will have a positive outcome for us in the long run. And then we all know things that we're doing that don't feel good that will not end well. And I think having the ability to recognize which quadrant we're in when we break those things down, right? Because there's those four things. It's things that we do that feel good that are good for us, things that we do that don't feel good but are good for us, things that feel good but aren't good for us, and then the worst one, the things that don't feel good and aren't good for us. And at some point, we got to figure out which one of those things we are. And, ideally, you try to exist as much as you can in those upper two quadrants, the things that feel good and are good for us, and the things that maybe don't feel good but are still good for us, right? Like, I know I hate, and I would like to underscore that and put it in exclamation marks and quotations, that I hate cold water. Absolutely hate it. Despise it, detest it, pick it. I do not like it. And this has been long ingrained in me. I remember when my mom signed me up for swimming, um, competitive swimming. I didn't mind doing swimming lessons because I think it's an important skill to get. Again, one of those things that doesn't feel good, but is good for you. But competitive
Yeah.
swimming was stupid. I don't want to race people. I don't want to be in the water. I'm not going to win. So why would I do this thing for me? It doesn't feel good and it's not good for me. So I'm just not going to do it. But I remember I've had such an aversion to water, such an aversion. I love warm water. Make no mistake. You put me in
Mhm.
water that's over 20 degrees Celsius, and I am a very, very happy Tyler. But anything like 10 degrees or colder, get me out of that. I don't want to be in that. That's awful. But I remember going to the beach with my daughter. She was about 3, and it was at a lake in the interior of Canada, in the mountains. So mountain-fed lake, cold water. But this lake was actually the warmer of 2. So it was in a town called Penticton. It has 2 lakes on it. On the north side of the town is Lake Okanagan, very cold. On the south side is Skaha Lake, and it's a shallow body for a mountain lake. At its deepest, it's probably about 20 meters, and a good portion of it isn't more than 2 or 3 meters deep. So it actually is a fairly warm body, particularly because in that region in the summertime, it's 35 degrees Celsius. And the water temperature is probably 8 to 10. So it's not cold from a water perspective. It's cold to me. It's not cold to a water perspective. And my daughter went in and she played and she was frolicking around and she was laughing and she was having a good time and she was just loving life. And she was like, Daddy, come play. And I was like, no, no, Daddy doesn't go in the water. Daddy, come play. No, no, Daddy doesn't go in the water. And then as we were getting dried up and leaving for the day, the sun was setting. We were getting ready to go back to our Airbnb. She looked up and she said, it would have been more fun if you'd come in the water. Oh,
Mhm.
Mike, that that hit me so hard because I was depriving her and me of a moment,
Mhm.
of a time together, and at that point, I was like, "No, I'm not going to let this mental block limit me." And it was just before my birthday, and so, starting my birthday, I started doing 5-minute cold showers every day. And I have now done that for 6 years without fail. I hate cold water, Mike. I wanna go back to my original statement. I do not like it. I do not like it. I don't enjoy it. This is not a thing that I like, but it is good for me. Good for me. It's good for me because now I don't have an excuse. My daughter started taking swimming lessons, and every day she wanted to swim with me, I would get in the water and I would swim with her. I still don't like getting in cold water, but I know it isn't going to kill me. It isn't even going to hurt me. It's just uncomfortable and I don't like it. But I love spending time with my daughter, and so there's a reason to do it. And I think that is really that key is discovering why are you averse to this thing? Are you averse to it because it's actually a bad thing, or is it because it's uncomfortable? And if it's just because you're uncomfortable, that's when you really have to find that inner strength to push past that discomfort because you have no idea what good will come from that benefit of that thing. And I think too many people are quick to dismiss this thing as a bad thing because I'm uncomfortable doing it, as opposed to it will stretch, it will help me grow. Because if I'm not in growth, I'm in contraction, and you don't want to be in contraction because then you're dying.
Yeah. Um, that was such a great story. For a second, even forgot my question. Um, but but no, at the end, I was back there with you. Um, so actually, that just made me think of a totally unrelated question. So, because obviously, as a performer, as a speaker, but also just as a human being, wh- what do you think, and or rather, why? Because I think you do think it's important. So, why are stories and why is storytelling so important for us human beings?
Because it's how we can gain empathy and understanding for each other. We've already had some beautiful examples just in the conversation that we've had. I think you said about 3 or 4 times
Yeah.
now, "What a great story." And one of the things that I learned working with, Les Brown, um, was that you never tell a story without a point, and you never make a point without a story. And I think it's one of the most profound things that I've ever learned from who is now technically a peer. Les is still very much a mentor to me, but I have spoken on stage with Les. I can say, in all honesty, even though there's some huge asterisks in my mind, that Les Brown has opened for me because I have
Mm,
spoke after Les. Um, the circumstances of which are, not actually the case. For anybody who knows, Les Brown has been living with cancer for, decades now, and he's doing really good, but there are days where he, needs a break, needs a rest, and he was doing the, 3-day, seminar in Bend, Oregon, and the event organizer reached out to me on the third day because Les needed to go in for a treatment. She just wasn't able to
mm,
make it through the weekend, and so she asked if I could step in and kind of finish the seminar off for him. And I was, first of all, unbelievably honored that she would reach out to me because she has a Rolodex that's 1,000 speakers thick easily.
mm,
And so I happened to be available and in the area, so it narrowed my chances, but the fact that I was, able to do that was an absolute gift, and so, I get to have the asterisk with it to say Les Brown opened for me, and that he is now a peer, but really, the reality is I still learn daily from Les, and, he is definitely at a much significantly higher level than I am. But I get to say that, right? And again, the thing that he told me, "You never make a point without a story, you never tell a story without a point." And the reason those stories are so impactful is because it allows you to see the world through my viewpoint, right? And it allows you to find commonalities because I know when I was talking about my daughter and when she said to me, it would have been more fun if you'd have been there, like you felt that too, right? Like it
yeah.
hits you and you can either empathize with it because of your own family dynamics or because you can just place yourself into it. But by telling a story, you metaphorically can walk a mile in my shoes. And as they said, you never judge a person until you've walked a mile in their shoes. Well, you can't physically do that. That's not an actual thing that you can do, but metaphorically you can. And the best way to do that is to hear their stories. And I go back to even my own acting, right? Like if I have to be a performer and play some of these really not nice people in the real world, I still need to be able to understand their rationale. I don't have to agree with it, but I do need to understand it. So I need to know what that story is, how they've come to view the world the way that they have. And when you can tell a story, I can walk that metaphorical mile in your shoes. I can see the world through your eyes and I can start to understand that viewpoint, why you think that. And if I can at least have an understanding, that's when I can start to have that empathy and that sympathy for your position. I don't have to agree with it. I don't even have to support it. But what I do need to do is gain understanding, and it's the stories that create it that mm, bond us and link us together. And I think what people need to remember too is we're very spoiled in this day and age with the level of literacy and the amount of information that is available to us. And
Very,
and to distinguish between the difference between information, knowledge, and understanding, because those are not all the same thing. Information is just the base point for all of those things. But the fact that we have the ability to read the written word at the level that we currently do is very, very new to our existence. This level of literacy wasn't even enjoyed 100 years ago. Definitely wasn't
very,
enjoyed 200 years ago. And 300, 400, 500 years ago, 1%, 2%, 3% of the population could read and write. The majority of how we communicated was through stories. You had town criers who would go, you would have minstrels who would create this information into songs so it was easier to remember. Um,
very,
you would have storytellers and playwrights who would put on these historical dramas so that they could tell and inform the masses of the happenings of the day because nobody could read. And it was through story that we communicated, going back to Homer and the Iliad and before that, like it was it's this in the caveman days, it was visual depictions and pictograms and early language and stories. That's how information was shared. And it's this oral medium, and that's why stories are so powerful. That's why stories still matter and count, because not everybody can read a book, but almost everybody can hear a story. And if you hear the story and if it's told well, you can really understand and have empathy. And that's why I think stories are important.
yes. I do realize that I have picked your brain a lot today already, but again, while you were saying this, I just and also you haven't talked about being a student as well, kind of. It makes me ask this question. So since I do have you here, what what kind of tips or maybe even resources could you give if I want to enhance my storytelling skill? How can people because you talked a lot about what a good story should do, and I'm very thankful and I listened to it and I know like the things you need to have in a good story. But how do I get started on that skill?
Well, so first of all, there's an exercise that we all can do right now. If for anybody who's listening, and if you're a regular listener of the Wandering Mike Show, thank you, by the way, for coming in and tuning in. Here's a quick exercise that we all can do together right now. It takes the initial exercise takes less than 2 minutes, involves very simplistic third grade math, and will get you will get you on the way to telling some fantastic stories. So the first thing to do is to take your age, however old you are, and round to the nearest five. So if my daughter were to do this, she's 9 years old, so she'd round to 10. If I were to do this, I'm 45, so I don't have to round at all because it is a multiple of five. When I was 42, I would have rounded down to 40. When I was 43 or 44, I would have rounded up to 45. Whatever your age is, it doesn't matter how old you are, you're going to round to the nearest five. Then you're going to take that number, whatever that number is, and you're going to divide by five. So you've rounded up to the nearest five, and now you've divided by five, and that will give us five even time periods or epochs of our life. So if my daughter were to do this, she's 9, she rounds to 10, she divides by 5, she has 5 even time periods of 2 years each. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I do this, I have 5 even time periods of 9 years each. So 0 to 9, and then 10 to 18, and then 19 to 27. 28 to 35, 36 to 45. And those are the time periods of my life. Now, quick asterisks and clarification for anybody who's an A type, who absolutely positively has to have an even number and doesn't like this rounding business that I just said. I know you're out there and I know you. I see you. Um, if you had to round up, what you're going to do is you're going to subtract what you rounded up by from your last time period because it's probably the most vivid. It's the thing that you remember the most because it's the earliest. So just for your last time period, subtract. It was either one or two because that's all you rounded up by. And if you had to round down, again, either one or two, just tack that on to your first time period and then add on those epochs from there, right? It's because you probably don't remember a lot in the first 12 to 24 months of your life. So adding on 2, 3, 4 years at the beginning is just going to give you a little bit of buffer to remember more. So now that we have our 5 even time periods of our lives, what we're going to do is we're going to look at each one of those time periods. And very quickly, Mike, no more than 20 seconds each. I want you to look at that time period and I want you to think, if I think of me in this first time, what is the first memory that I have? Don't think too hard about it. Just what's the first one that comes to mind? And then you do that for the second time period, third time period, fourth time period, and fifth time period. If you have a whole bunch of things that flood to you, if you're like rapid fire, 1, 2, 3, 4, write them all down. It's fine. If you're struggling and you're like, I just can't think of a thing, don't wait too long. If you can't think of something that happened in that time period in 20 seconds, move on to the next time period. This should be 20 seconds each. It's the impactful thing. It's the thing that springs to your mind instantaneously and immediately. And once you've done that, the first part of this exercise is done. 2 minutes. That's all it should take because it's simple math and then 20 seconds per time period. The real work after that is now going back to look at those memories that you've listed and asking why. Why is that the memory? When you think back to your life in that first time period or that second time period or that third one or the fourth one or this most recent one, why is that the memory that comes? What about that is significant to you? And then start to explore that. Why is that the memory? And then the real gift comes in this one. Start to ask yourself, who were you before and who were you after that event? What did you know before that event? What did you learn through it? What did you need to learn through it? What are the lessons that you could teach from that? And that will start to frame the stories around those events because those events are unique to you. Those are your thumbprint, those are your signature, those are your DNA, the essence of who you are. And nobody on the planet, no matter how long they've known you, the longest person who's known you is your mother. And even she doesn't know you as well as you know you. So you are the expert on your story. So nobody on the planet can tell your story better than you. What you need to do is tell your story in a way that other people find it interesting. So when we start to frame this and we start to explore the lessons that are in there, it's important to remember that if you study the hero's journey and that kind of framework for storytelling that has been created, a lot of people, when they try to tell their story and what they get wrong about it, is they make themselves the hero. You are not the hero in your story. And I know that sounds weird, but you are not. If you look at Joseph Campbell's model for the hero's journey, you have the hero and they're in a state of stasis. They're static. They're unaware. And then there's a pivotal event, a changing event, a life-altering event that descends them into a state of chaos, where they then meet a sage or mentor who then guides them through a series of trials and tribulations in preparation for them to meet their adversary and overcome the final obstacle and then begin their journey home. And where most people make the mistake is they try to frame themselves as the hero. I have done this. I'm so great. I'm blah, 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 blah. And then I moved along and I did this thing and this thing and this thing. And it's boring because nobody cares, because everybody is the hero in their own story. So if you're trying to become the hero, you're trying to become the hero of my story. You're not the hero, pal. I'm the hero. So what you want to do is you want to reframe it and retell it as the sage or the mentor. I am going to guide you to overcome these obstacles, and I know these obstacles because I've been on this path before. You don't want to be Luke Skywalker. You want to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. And if people are like, I don't like Star Wars, I don't get that reference. Okay, fine. You don't want to be Harry Potter. You want to be Dumbledore. And by the way, they're the exact same story. Are you ready? An orphan child
Mm.
who's living with his aunt and uncle is found by a mystic wizard slash Jedi and ultimately has to find the magic or force within him to then
Right.
defeat the evil character at the end. Now, who himself is a master wizard slash Jedi and killed his parents.
What? True.
Same story. Why? Because it follows the hero's journey model and to a T. But therein lay the point that the hero's journey is universal and is the best way to tell a story. So when you are telling your story, frame it as the sage or the mentor. I am here because you are here and I want to help you get, you're at point A, I'm at point B. I've been to C and I want to help you get to C yourself. And that's how you tell those stories powerfully. And the stories that you're going to tell are those ones that were the most powerful in your life, the ones that had the most influence on your life. And the way to discover that is to do the math exercise, come up with those 5 powerful stories in your life because they meant something to you for a reason, or they wouldn't be the ones that pop to your mind. It's the discovery within yourself. And I've done this dozens and dozens of times with my own story. And like when I do this exercise, in the first time period, I have 2 very distinct memories. And one of the things I should clarify for people is these memories don't have to be vivid, hyper realistic dreams either. Like it could be a shape, it could be a color, it could be a smell. In my case, they're sounds, 2 very distinct sounds. When I do this exercise, the first one is the sound of laughter and applause when I was doing the Christmas pageant in elementary school. And the sound and the feeling that comes with a standing ovation, so it's auditory and then it's sensory where I can hear the sound of applause and clapping, and then I can feel the warmth that radiates from inside my chest and out to my extremities of just pure joy and appreciation and the shared connection with an audience that if somebody hasn't experienced a standing ovation, they won't know what I'm talking about. But if you have experienced a standing ovation, oh man, is it so powerful. It is life-changing. And one of the things that I do at my seminars is try to get everybody to experience what a standing ovation feels like because it is
Mhm.
life-altering and life-changing. And so that it's that sound, that initial sound of claps and laughter and cheers and hoots and hollers that then brings on this feeling of warmth, and that is one of my first memories. And then literally 2 months to the day, almost, is, the next most powerful memory in all of my memories, and that is the sound that my mom made when a police officer and my family physician came to our back door and told her that my father was never coming home. And the sound that she made was this animalistic, guttural, earth-shattering, air-sucking noise, like, everything in the neighborhood sounded like it had collapsed and around itself in a vacuum, and all I could hear was the anguish and pain in my mother's wail, and it was deafening, absolutely deafening. And I have spent my entire life trying to avoid that sound, and my entire life trying to recapture the first sound. So I constantly am seeking applause and that sound of a and feeling of a standing ovation. And I've done everything in my power to avoid the hurt and the pain and the fear and the anger that comes with that other sound. And subsequently, when I retired from acting when I was 25 and went back and got my engineering discipline, and then moved on from that into the career that I now have as a safety professional and a public speaker and trainer and facilitator, it's all directly influenced by trying to avoid this sound and trying to help other people avoid this sound of pain and anguish, and at the same time getting people to experience and discover and feel the validation that comes with the other sound of this of the standing ovations and the applause. And in doing the two in combination, I get to experience the absence of the one and the presence of the other over and over and over again. It has constantly influenced my life. And so I have a whole repertoire of stories, but when I tell them and why I use them and how I use them, it's based on this initial exploration of why are they important to me? And then what do they mean to you?
Right.
Reframed and told in the hero's journey, where I am not the hero, I am the sage mentor trying to get you to feel these things, and told in a way that is specific enough that you feel it. Because one of the things that I learned working with Bo Eason was the more specific a story, the more detailed the story, the more universal it will be received. The more people will be able to step into those shoes because you can step them through step by step by step by step, right? I can tell you the sound that my mom made, how it felt through the air. You can step into that. If I want more detail, I can tell you that I was 6 years old, that I was sitting on the toilet reading a comic book, an Archie comic book, if I want to get really detailed. Yeah. So the way that my mother's house is laid out, um, it's a split level. And so you come into the landing or the entryway from the back door on what would be ground level. And then you can either go up into the kitchen, and just off of the kitchen is the bathroom, or you can go down into the basement. And so because you kind of do these two little right hand turns up the stairs to get into the bathroom and where the toilet sits within the bathroom is literally right across from the back entryway. And if you could remove the wall from the bathroom, I could have literally reached out and touched my mom's shoulder. But obviously there's a wall there and I couldn't do it. And I never felt more isolated or alone because she physically was less than 2 feet away, but emotionally, um, and mentally, we were universes apart. And the worst part is I couldn't do anything about it because I couldn't leave until I was done with Mother Nature, and Mother Nature was not done with me. So I was locked into this area until I was done doing my business. And that felt like an eternity unto itself. It's probably only 2 minutes because I rushed to finish up, but it felt like forever. And then when I did get out of the washroom, mom was nowhere to be found. Couldn't find her. But my physician, who ended up becoming a very good mentor of mine, and his son and I actually play in a band together now, um, was there to greet me, and he led me to my room, and he was the one to tell me that my father had passed away. And at the time, I didn't understand that. Like I was 6 years old. Like death and the finality of mortality doesn't really calculate in a 6-year-old mind. Like, it's really hard to understand that. And when I do the 5-story exercise, my next time period, my next epoch, that 10 to 18-year-old Tyler, I have very distinct, 2 very distinct memories from that one too. The one is the moment that I actually came to the realization that my father would never come home. I was in the 6th grade, and I won the award for being the top student of my elementary school. And I'll never forget it because, in elementary, they line you up, youngest to oldest. And so all the oldest kids sit in the back. And it's 6th grade, 12 years old. I'm the oldest. So we're in the back. And I remember being way in the back of the school gymnasium, end of year assembly. My mom was sitting over on the north side of the gymnasium. We were sat to the back, which would have been the east side of the gymnasium, and they called my name. And I thought for sure that either Jaronel Arca or Liam Stone or David Graham or one of my other friends was going to be the top students, because I didn't feel like I could be the top student, because to this day I still think those guys are smarter than me. I just happen to be the most articulate. And so I ended up winning this award. And I remember getting up and walking to the back of the gymnasium and then along the side to go up. And as I was going past my mom, she was, proud crying, the little glisten in the eye and the big beaming smile. And she was looking at me. She was all proud. And I remember feeling so proud and so happy. And then as I was going past her, the seat next to her was empty. And this is a packed gymnasium because it's the end of year assembly. You had parents of all the kids who were getting awards, and like students and teachers and faculty, and like everybody's in the gym. It was packed. People were standing towards the entrance to the gym, which is on the west side, and like everybody was like, it was packed. And there was this empty chair. And I remember looking at that empty chair and thinking, why is that empty? And then I remember thinking, it would really have been nice if my dad could have seen this. Dad should have been there. Dad should have been sitting in that chair. And then as I'm walking up, I'm starting this bullet train of thought starts. It leaves the station, and like a Japanese express train going 300 miles an hour, that thing just shot and wouldn't stop. Had momentum and it wouldn't quit. So as I'm walking up to receive the award, those last 10, 15 steps, I have this realization that my father isn't there. My father isn't going to see me get this award. He's not gonna see me commence from the 6th grade. He's not gonna see me graduate the 12th grade. He's not gonna see me graduate if I go to university. He's never gonna see my significant others, my girlfriends. He's never gonna be at my wedding. He won't meet my wife. He'll never meet his grandchildren. My grandchildren will never meet their grandfather. He is never going to be here. And that is the first time, 6 years from my physician sitting me down February of 1986 to 1991 in June, in the 12th grade, me graduating, of me finally realizing the finality of mortality. My father was never going to be there. And I just started crying, like bawling. Everybody thought I was happy sad because I was receiving this reward. And actually, I was having an existential crisis of disbelief, going, my father's never going to be here. And then what was interesting is that I walked back, I couldn't stop looking at this chair, and I'm like, "Why is that chair empty?" And then I thought, "Well, maybe it isn't. Maybe he is here. Maybe he can see this. He is present in my life." I've felt that presence, and when I thought about it, I could feel the time when my father was present in my life, and still feel the times where my father is present in my life. And so then I had this new realization that my father was always going to be there for me. My father was always gonna see the things that I do. Oh my god, my father is always gonna see the things that I do. I better do things right. He's always gonna be there. I can hide things from my mom, but I can never hide things from my dad. And that was another interesting take that had to go through. So it's those stories that matter. And using this exercise to frame them is really the most powerful tool that I can pass on to people. And so you'd said, "Are there any free gifts?" Well, I hope over the last 20 minutes of that explanation, Mike, we've given people some tools that they can use. But the nice thing is I've actually got all of these, um, written down and broken out in worksheets, and we offer for free in my Facebook group called Endless Stages. So if anybody who is listening to the Wandering Mike right now wants to just go into the show notes, they will find my information there. Before they go there, Mike, they're already on your platform. They're already on the Wandering Mike. They haven't gotten to Sean Tyler Foley. They haven't gotten to Endless Stages. They are on the Wandering Mike. So before they start clicky and moving on to somebody else's platform, I want them to take a moment on your platform because you're the one that introduced them to me. You're the one that is really actually providing them this information and this material. So, as a thank you to you, before they come over to me, they need to take a couple moments. I know they're listening, whatever platform you're listening to this on, just hit pause. It's okay. We'll still be here when you hit play. Hit pause. Go to the little descriptions that are down below. Give a 5-star review to Mike for the Wandering Mike Show, and use that little comment box for what it's intended. And that is to tell Mike why you're leaving a 5-star review. What about the show brings you back? Who was one of your favorite guests? What is some of the content that you've really enjoyed? What is something Mike does each show that really brings you back? Because obviously you're coming back because you're listening to it. If you can do that, it's going to help everybody. First of all, it's going to help Mike bring on more guests that you enjoy. And if you have more guests that you enjoy, you're going to get more out of this show. So it helps you to help him. And if we have more people who are enjoying this show and listening longer and further, more eyes will be on this platform, which means more eyes have the opportunity to see this episode, which means more people are likely to click on the link to go to SeanTylerFoley.com. And Sean is spelled the proper Irish way, SeanTylerFoley.com. And if you're going there to get my information, it means you found it through Mike. So we need to reward Mike first before you come to me. If if you're willing to leave a 5-star review and leave a comment on why, if you come over to SeanTylerFoley.com through the link in the description, then I will give you access to the Endless Mike platform, our Endless Stages platform, which includes our Drop the Mic training series. It's 7 videos, 5 minutes each, all with easy to digest lessons over the coffee break that will help you become a more confident speaker to be able to tell these stories. We'll give you access to the Endless Mic or the Drop this, yeah, the Endless Stages Facebook group where we go live and give lessons and we have all of the worksheets. So if you want to actually break down this storytelling method, we have the work for that. You can do that. And you'll also get a free PDF of my book, The Power to Speak Naked. So you don't have to spend $17.95 US in stores or online for that. You can just get the PDF for free. All of that is yours, but only if you give Mike a 5-star review and tell him why. No 5-star review, no free gifts for you.
Well, Tyler, thank you so much for taking us through all that. It really was very, very insightful. And I'm pretty sure that everyone also appreciates the resources you offer in your Facebook group. So, yeah, definitely be sure to check that out and get more into that. And so, basically, the final question that I always ask is just a little look into the future. So, we learned about you. We learned a lot from you today. So basically, I just want to know, what does the future hold for Tyler? What are some dreams, some aspirations that you still have, that you're still at this moment going towards?
Well, I have no crystal ball, so I have no idea what the future actually holds. But if I could design my future, and I do a pretty good job of doing it and making these things come to fruition, I I would love. I have a production company that I'm an executive producer for right now, and we produce original musicals. I work with an unbelievably gifted playwright, Marin Ord, Married name is Marin Burnham, but her professional name is Marin Ord, is how you'd find her. Marin Ord Music, and she writes some of the most incredible scores to musical theater that I've ever heard in my entire life. She's a playwright and a composer, and I helped us produce a show last year called The Gardener, and I would love to have that make its way to Broadway. Not because my name's attached to it, but because Marin's is, because her work deserves to be seen. It is just heart wrenching. Um, and beautiful and just an amazing story, an amazing score. Helping her produce another one called The Night of the Murder. She has a repertoire of about 5 musicals now that she's written over the last 6 years, and they're all incredible, but these 2, she's getting really mature with her writing as she's figuring it out and growing, and these last 2 that she's written, in particular, The Gardener and The Night of the Murder, are phenomenal, just phenomenal, and I'm so excited to see those happening. So, in the future, I would love it if I, uh, could have had some small part in hearing the following words, and the winner of the Tony goes to Marin Ord. And if I can hear that at some point in my life and know that I had a small contribution in that, that would bring me joy. And then I would love, you know, 20, 30, 40 years from now, if people were to Google my name, to be known as the father of Mackenzie Foley, for whatever it is that my daughter ends up accomplishing. And if I can provide her with the guidance and the resources and the knowledge and the skill sets to be able to take advantage of all of the gifts that she has in her life, and they are abundant. That would be my greatest accomplishment, is to be cited as her father. and and that would bring me great joy. So those are the things that I'm working towards right now. And the nice thing is in trying to do that, I get to fulfill a lot of things on my own. So finding larger stages to speak on, and being asked to do things like step in for Les Brown, or I at one point was able to speak on the stage before Tony Robbins, and that was on an event that wasn't a Robbins research event. And I would love to be invited one day to a Robbins research event, because I'm known for my content and for my programs, and to have somebody like Tony or Les Brown or Brian Tracy invite me onto one of their platforms where we can collaborate together, I think would be an amazing accomplishment if I could get there. And so we've got the plan in place, we've got the processes, uh, and I'm moving towards that daily. But really, all of that is in fulfillment of trying to get these other 2 big wishes and goals up and going, and why I drop their names usually before my own.
Beautiful. That's those are some beautiful aspirations, and like you said, you got the process in place, so I have no doubt that it'll happen. Um, so yeah, we already, or you rather, talked about your Facebook group, which again, everyone definitely needs to check out. But lastly, I also, and everything is going to be in the show notes, as you said. But yeah, I always give you a minute or a couple to also tell people maybe anything else where they can find you, where they can find you online if they want to get in touch with you. Yeah,
Yeah, all things me can be found through the website, SeanTylerFoley.com. And again, Sean is spelled the proper Irish way, SeanTylerFoley.com. If you do get a moment, if you are an Amazon Prime subscriber and you can find it in your um, feed, I believe the order is now on Amazon. So do check that out. If you see it in one of your local theaters, please check it out in the theater. It is definitely best enjoyed on the big screen. Phenomenal story. I think both Jude Law and Ty Sheridan and Nick Holtz, who are in that movie, it's probably one of Nick's best performances, and he's an incredible actor. He doesn't do bad performances. So saying I think this is his best is no understatement. Like he brought it more than his A game to it. Him and Jude play off each other incredibly well. Ty Sheridan broke my heart in this film. It just his performance is next level. So if you do get a chance to see The Order, I would strongly encourage you to do that. And then you know, midway through about the 25-minute mark, you get to point and say, "Hey, I heard that guy on a podcast and I know him from the Wandering Mike," and we can say hello. And then if you join endless stages, you can actually chat with me, and then you can actually say you know somebody in the order, and that would bring me joy.
Very cool. Um, so Tyler, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you for sitting down and sharing your journey, sharing all your insights. I personally learned so much. I really enjoyed it. Just thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me, Mike. It was a pleasure.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. And with that, bye everyone.